This is a 11th, 12th grade reading standard from the Common Core State Standards. And you may or may not be familiar with this one, but I just wanted to show you. So a standard here, it's telling you that students are going to be making meaning of words and phrases in a text, and they want the student to be able to analyze how an author is using the words to refine the meaning over the course of that text. And they give an example here of Madison's word faction in his Federalist Papers. This is focused on craft and structure, but it doesn't really tell you a lot about what you would do in the course of teaching to this standard, having students acquire this standard. What kinds of language knowledge are embedded in, or presupposed in that standard. So a lot of what we do with the learning progressions is trying to unpack what students are expected to be able to accomplish with language as they read a particular text. Basically, we're asking kids to do quite a lot of things when we give a very broad standard like that. And it's not very overt what we're asking them to do. So, to be able to get to that standard, what you would need to know is whether students are using the conventions of providing formal definitions. So you have to be thinking about, if you use a term like definition, is every student going to understand what you're talking about? They need to be able to talk and write about word choice of authors in a text. They need to talk about semantic refinement as an object of study. So you could imagine the shades or nuances of using different words. And while they may be synonymous, why would you use one kind of word in one context and a synonymous word in a different context? What are you trying to convey by those subtle differences in meaning? And finally, to understand and use language of sequencing in order to keep track of word uses across the text. And again, as a teacher, you may make an assumption that kids can sequence language quite well. And from our research, we know that even at 6th grade, we have students who are native English speakers who we've collected data on, and they're also having a really hard time with coherence and cohesion. We've collected a lot of data with native English speakers, all kids who are already proficient in English, and finding that one thing we have to be sure not to do is to hold our English learners to a higher standard. When we've gone back and found areas of real challenge for native speakers, and yet, if we were focused only on English language learners, we'd say, oh, English language learners can't necessarily sequence their explanations, and we're finding that that's a challenge for a lot of children, regardless of language background. In other content areas, are throwing away, or throwing around, I should say, terms like explain. So a math teacher would be focused here on how a student would be able to articulate why the sum or the product of two rational numbers is rational, and yet they've used this word explain without really thinking about what does it mean to explain? What am I really looking for with language when the student gives me an explanation?